Hello, this is Elizabeth Hoskins with Bodie Middle School in the St. Joseph School District in St. Joseph, Missouri. And we are here today with the session We've Got Spirit. So you might be wondering exactly what that has to do with us and with Canva. If you're watching this, it might have a lot to do with you because you are curious enough to check out this session. A lot of librarians and teachers support various aspects of their school and district's media platforms, which has been the case for me over the last 10 years in my building. I started out as our school's web manager when I first took my job at Bodie. And part of that included maintaining the website, which meant putting up some announcements and just kind of basic maintenance. While I never maintained our social media, in large part because I didn't want to be solely responsible for it, I have had made graphics for it over the years. I also do the visual announcements for my building, which is a slide deck that is updated on a weekly basis and is playing on TVs in my hallway, in my library, and in our cafeteria. I'm also the yearbook advisor, and I've made things for print advertising and other things in our building as well. For you, that may be other roles and other things that you do to support your building. And while a lot of those things I haven't in the past necessarily thought of as explicitly supporting school spirit, as I was putting this presentation together, I was finding things in my Canva history that I realized really do support school spirit, even if they're in a little bit more subtle way. So let's jump right in. As I went through, I found that what my inspiration was different than what I thought. And so where it started really was several years ago, with a couple of things. So one of those, in a very small way, when you look at Dude with Sign, in this case, he says day 140 of not knowing what 6-7 means. One of the things that he does is just kind of say pithy little things in a very simple way. And so that's something that I like to do in a small way in my building, just to acknowledge and recognize the things that students are saying, and try to find a way to incorporate it. In a much bigger way, though, Blacksmith, he is an Instagram account. He's on other platforms as well, but he uses these balloons and he creates different sayings in different ways and posts them on his account. And I really enjoy just kind of the aesthetics of it. And I also enjoy what he has to say. But when I had the idea to use these, I just really liked the look and I wanted to include it on our school website, because I was in charge of putting up a banner across the top where pictures could rotate through. And this was something that I thought would look really fun and interesting and would be engaging. Our principal at the time had a saying that she said at the end of the announcements each day, whether it was her or whether students were saying it. And that was just a simple, it's always a great day to be a patriot. Our mascot is a patriot. And so I knew that our students would recognize the saying and would connect with it immediately. And so I went into Canva and I found these balloon letters included in the graphics and was able to create a fairly similar look to what he was doing on Instagram, by just pulling the letters into a graphic along with pictures that, as the yearbook advisor, I had taken of some cheerleaders at our basketball game. This became a website header, as I mentioned. I also used it on those visual announcements. And then I had our print shop print them on posters that I hung in our library and then later gave to one of our coaches who put them in the hallway leading into our gym. And so it was something that was posted in a variety of ways for our school and gave a little bit of recognition to the students that were included. It has that saying that pulls in our school mascot and really just gave this very small little boost to those students and to school spirit in a very small way. And so, even though this wasn't the thing that I was thinking about when I proposed this session, when I saw these again in my account, I realized that I really have been doing things like this for a long time. And so, I wanted to share it because it's a fairly easy thing to do that doesn't take a whole lot of time. And doesn't necessarily have to include photos. You could do something like this with just graphics. And it would be a quick and easy thing to toss up somewhere, whether it's in print or digitally. And so taking the inspiration into reality, as you can see here, like I mentioned, each of those balloons is a graphic. Each of the girls is a photo that I removed the background from. And then those balloon letters are all from one set. And so now that I know how to search for those, by finding them using the info button. In this case, you can do a couple of things. One, you can view more by stylish design. Um, Down below there, I did have the set number included. Or you can hit view collection. So, view collection is where I found that set number up at the top of that information, or they're all just right there. Having the set number later is nice because then you can look it up individually, or you can look up by that designer as well. And so it was a really great way to be able to pull those in. And then there's really just two other elements, that background and the floor they're on. I might do it differently now if I were to do this for the first time today, just because I've kind of evolved in the way that I style things. But I was really pleased with it then. I'm still pleased with it now. And I think that it was a neat and fun way to pull some students into the forefront. The parent of at least one of these is somebody that I'm friends with, and she was really excited to see her student highlighted. And so I really do think it is a great way to pull lots of people into your community and increase school spirit just in a very small and easy way. Once I had done one, it became something that it was very easy to do again by one, rearranging either the same letter set. I did it by pulling the same balloons in a different colorway into a design, and then using photos that I was taking either at games already or asking students to pose after an assembly, or using photos that another parent was providing, or a coach provided to me following like a cross country meet, for example. And then last year, I kind of had pulled this back up after not having done them for a couple years. I had done them for academics as well, uh, spelling bee winners, student of the week winners. And then last year, pulled them from students always ask me to take their photos. They know that I work on the yearbook. And anytime I walk by with a camera, several of them will pose and ask me to take their picture. And so I pulled several of those into these graphics and posted those in those visual announcements. Again, it's a very easy way for people to feel recognized and seen. And I think that's so important for our students of any age. And as those things are scrolling on the TVs inside of my building, it's a quick and easy thing to do, especially when you utilize a similar graphic one time to the next. You can see this top right and bottom left are the same graphic, just with a different photo. The top left is the same graphic that I used for volleyball, just slightly rearranged in size and spacing. And so very quick and easy to accomplish. I have some additional inspiration from Blacksmith here, that I have considered using. I think it would be very easy to use the neon effect on lettering, to capture this look that he has in this left hand graphic. And then I also think you could do some really neat things with this idea of taking a picture from above, looking down at a group of students, whether it was your seniors or a club or some other group that you take the time to take a photo of, and then to maybe find a letter set that would look kind of similar to what these do, so that you don't have to take the time to scatter and arrange flowers on the ground the way he has done. But just taking that time, to create these is something that absolutely does make people feel special and they feel seen. And it highlights different groups around our buildings in a quick and easy way. If you don't have something like the announcements or a website that you're managing, they are something that you could send off to social media. Again, thinking about a handful of things like whether or not students have permission to be pictured online is important, but especially those things that are put up around your building, the is less of a concern most of the time about including folks in those. Another designer that I really like, that I have seen on Instagram quite frequently, is Lake House Designs. She just puts these kind of inspirational sayings. Sometimes they are um, they're still maybe inspirational depending on who you are, but just kind of a caution going into it. Sometimes her language is not as clean, but if you are looking at something just kind of a fun, pretty style, this is also something that is relatively easy to replicate in Canva. This has several elements that are stacked together here, but it was very quick and easy to put together. A handful of floral elements, a regular font that is part of Canva automatically, and then just on a square graphic. So something very easy that could be put into. I really like it for something like a bookmark because I've decided that bookmarks do not have to be skinny rectangles. And so I can print these out and make them available to my students. And it's something that they can carry around and just gives them a little bit of a reminder about the school that they're in and the community that they are a part of. Another thing that I have done that really just kind of pulls people in and makes them feel recognized is for my staff. I'm using avatar generators to create likenesses of them in these styles that we're familiar with, like Muppets, Peanuts, and Lego figures. Um, Please know that I always say that we want to use anything like this technology that generates these with caution, but making these is something that students enjoy seeing. In my building, I take the time to create these with items associated that make them recognizable to the students or to themselves as well. And so I would make these, and then I would usually send the graphic then to that staff member as well, saying, "Hey, I made this for these slides in the cafeteria. I thought you might enjoy it. Feel free to use it if you would like." And so it does make them feel recognized in some way, to know that if they were my social studies teacher, for example, whose room is all decked out in Chiefs gear, and she can see that in this picture of herself as a Lego figure, or the one who always wears pithy t-shirts about history, that's something that she wears all the time, and that was seen enough that I could use that to inspire this graphic of her. Or in the slides in the cafeteria, my PE teachers had the pleasure of getting to spend time in the cafe each day. And so looking up and seeing this in the screens where that was part of the rotating announcements, and seeing the basketball and the soccer ball and these kind of representations of themselves, and knowing that that was them. And so doing that for different folks, to recognize that they are an important part of our building and our culture as well. Something that is happening on these slides that I think is kind of a neat thing, that you can find tutorials on. I'm not the best person to teach it, but I wanted to mention it, is finding a tutorial on doing knockout text. This example up here in the corner that has a tutorial linked is to utilize a font that is actually just built into Canva, and it is on a 210 font called Blackout Box. So if you type in 210 and search for it, you will be able to find it among the list of fonts if you just keep scrolling down. And so if you placed this on a background that had a same color as the box here, you would be able to see, whatever was left behind it, whatever graphic you wanted to put behind that text. What I did on my slides is actually to follow a different tutorial that utilizes Photoshop to create a graphic in the font of my choice, and then uses some other tips and tricks and techniques to be able to hide a graphic behind some other layers of items here. So when I click into this set of layers, you can see that there's some other boxes that are hiding things, to be able to put this graphic behind there and create that look. Once I had done it once, though, I used that same thing on all of these and just kept replacing the graphic that was behind it. And so that's why I kept the same font across all of these, because then it was super easy for me to place other things behind it, make it personalized for each set of people, and then have a fun, neat thing each time a new one of those went up. Please be aware of what people on your staff are comfortable with. Mine didn't have their names or pictures posted with them. Students were guessing who they were and having a really good time with that. They were only posted inside of my building, but I know that there are more and more people out there who are really considering the implications that go along with AI. And so I want to be fully aware of that as well, and suggest that everyone be aware of what people are comfortable with in your building and respectful of that to the best of our ability. And so, just a really quick little note about that, so that we're taking all of those feelings into consideration as well. Okay, so school spirit. A lot of times when we think about school spirit, we are thinking about those time spent with athletics and sports and supporting our teams, whether that is athletics or an academic, scholar bowl competitive team, and things of that nature. And so, um, when I first thought of this session, that was kind of at the heart of what I was thinking about, because last year I had a coach who sent me an email after a track meet and asked me if I would be willing to create a graphic to recognize our students who had broken school records um, in the track meet. And I was absolutely on board with doing that, because I love to do anything that will recognize our students and will, again, make them feel seen, and give them the opportunity to kind of show off their skills and their talents and put them in the spotlight when they absolutely deserve to be seen for what they are doing, and where they're excelling. His inspiration, and then mine, came from a local high school who was doing the same thing with their track students. And so I took a look at what he had seen and then used it to inspire my own graphics as well. In this instance, I had been at the track meet again as a yearbook advisor, taking photos so that I had enough for my own needs as well, and had a photo that I was really excited to use right away, because my student Kaya had set a high jump record, and I had taken a pretty good photo of her that evening, setting that record. And so I had that available, and I went into Canva and found a pre-made template in the social media templates, that I used to create this graphic as an example of what I thought maybe he was hoping for when he asked me to create these. And then, once he said, "Yes, I think that looks great," that's what I was thinking. I then arranged to come and take photos of the kids I did not have photos of during competition, to create the rest of them, and ask them to bring their jerseys and to be prepared to have their photo taken at a practice. And so those were used then on social media, on the visual announcements, utilizing the resize feature, because once you make it, you might as well keep using it as many times as you can, because once you've got it, it's really very easy to resize it then for presentations or social media, or for custom sizing it into something that can be printed, because I also was then asked to print these for end of the year recognition and awards, because the students had been so excited to see them and thought they looked really neat. And so one of the coaches wanted to be able to hand them a copy of it framed at the end of the year as well. One of the things that I found was that when you want to make a graphic like this, one of the absolute best places you can go is into a social media post. So this right now says Untitled Design Facebook post, because the templates for those very frequently are going to be things that have kind of already a pre-made look, that might be the thing that you're kind of thinking of in terms of, that smoke and lights and the fonts and the things that you are thinking of. And so that's kind of where I got my start on these. Um, and so, how do you get spirit? Um, like I was saying there, sometimes it's pre-made. And so this is one of those examples that I have found, and that I've used. And so since then, I've also made some of these this year, not specifically for setting records, but I wanted to be able to do it for other sports. And so, even though this is not one of my middle school students, this is just the template. And then I reworked it to be in a different shape, to just bring students into our last football game of the year. And so in this case, I took what was existing from that template and then rearranged it to fit my needs, in a different way, which is kind of what I had done for the track ones as well. Because if we go back and look at those, you can see that they're not all identical. I put in a different shape for the track, on different ones. The original one didn't have a track graphic specifically at all, and I added that for the ones, where they weren't actively competing in the sport in the photo. And so rearranging things to fit what you need is really a key part of what, um, I want to highlight when I talk about the ways that you can use Canva, because yes, you can build things from scratch, but you can also use your creative mind to use a template and then move it around and make it what you need it to be. And so in this case, I had a photo of a student from one of our games, and I, um, removed the background. I stretched out that graphic from the pre-made template, and then I brought in some different smoke that I liked better than what was on there. I popped in some, of these other colors behind him and pulled the colors from his uniform. And the photo is from a pink out game. And so I included this pink as well, even though that's not one of our typical colors, because I wanted to be able to show, um, some connection, in that background to him and what was going on. And I wanted to angle those to kind of match his angle and put in some additional graphics that seemed like they matched the momentum of what was happening, and just pull everything together to the best of my ability. And so when I say that it might be pre-made, know that what I mean is take something that is pre-made and then make it yours, because I think that is one of the best parts of this program, is that it gives you the ability to take what, uh, maybe somebody else has given you a base, and then really make it into something that is personalized for you and for your school. Um, Also, because I had already done, this graphic, for track the previous year, I was able to then transform it into something this year for football as well. So in that same game, I made several slides using photos that I had taken, at a couple of games. Some I had taken, and some that, one of my colleagues had taken, as well as some student, taken photographs, and then make those into these advertising graphics to encourage students to come to our last game of the year. Because again, that school spirit, for me, is about a sense of community and a sense of camaraderie and bringing people together. And so, even though I say that, sometimes spirit is pre made, sometimes it is self made. And in this case, these graphics are ones that I really put a little bit more, of myself into from start to finish. And so they may still contain some elements from some of those pre-made things that I pulled in. For example, this one on the upper right, this one uses those same graphics, that were in one of the other ones, but they're not at all in the same places or locations. They're just a consistent look. In this case, this photograph is one that one of my colleagues took. She saw something similar online, And she had been wanting to take a photo like this and asked these boys if they wanted to do it. And they did because they were excited to have their picture taken. And this was a way we could use it that was really fun and neat, and they were so excited to see it. This bottom left one of my students took, and when I saw this on the camera later when I was pulling his photos, he's a football player, and while he was waiting for his game to start, he took some photos for me. And this was another one that I was really just excited to see, and to not only be able to highlight this student on a slide, but to be able to highlight my yearbook staff student, knowing that even though other people, like, I didn't give him a credit on the slide where it said who took it, he knew that he took that photo, and that was important as well. So anytime that we can recognize somebody, same thing here. My colleague who took this, she is actually one of our administrative assistants, and photography is a skill of hers that not everybody knows about. And so this is another way that I feel like it's so easy to show somebody that we recognize their skills and their talents in a way that brings those into um, a highlight of importance within our communities. And then a couple of other things. This photo of my student who, if I were to zoom in, he's like looking me right in the eyes as I take his picture while he runs by. And he is like legitimately near the end of a 95-yard touchdown in this photo. And then this top one, which is just kind of a crazy, wild mess of pictures that I took in a single game that I just really enjoyed. All of them, and I wanted to put them all in here. And so this was all built from scratch. And you can see that there's all kinds of elements here, and it probably looks like it was built from scratch and it's not a template. But it's just really fun, and the kids loved it. And that to me is what is most important, especially when you're talking about school spirit. To me, this is about highlighting them, making them feel good, making them feel seen and excited, and getting their friends pumped and excited to attend as well. And so each of these kids individually knows they were highlighted, and was able to sit in the cafeteria as these played on announcements and like point themselves out during those lunch periods on the days that it played. And so something that was just really fun and enjoyable to see and to know was happening. And this is kind of a crazy wild thing with all the lightning and the smoke and everything, but all of these individual elements were just kind of something that was fun to put together. In terms of what I do process wise for that, a lot of times I may start with an actual kind of dark background like I'm using on these slides today. In this case, I have a photo that I just actually really love, where I have a student in the background who is pointing towards the end zone because he knows that we are getting real close. It's right over here. This student, who is one of mine, who has actually gone through a really tough time this year, is just right on the cusp of making it down there. And so for me, this photo and in our community actually will have a lot of meaning. And so this slide is not the shape that I might normally be starting with exactly. And a lot of times I remove background in this case because we can see that this is that last 10 yards, and everything that's happening from the background all the way up here with the ref. I actually really love everything that's going on in this. And so in this case, I would probably keep everything that's going on in it. And then I would start looking for elements to build into it. And so, like I said, a lot of times I do just use things that I've pulled from things I've already made so that I don't have to start from the beginning. But there's all kinds of like smoke elements and other things that you can build into these that people kind of, especially the kids, think are cool. And if you're at a high school versus a middle school, sometimes that affects what they think is cool. But these are the things that my students especially think are are neat. And so that's probably where I would start with that. I would look at maybe some twinkling stars, because I will also sometimes download something as a GIF to put on my slides so that you're able to see that effect, just kind of depending on what it is. One of those other graphics had some twinkling stars in it already, and I really enjoyed the way they looked. None of these are like calling my name specifically right now. But anyway, you kind of get the idea that there's all different things that you might include depending on, what you like. I might, in this case, because I really wanted to highlight, if I wanted to highlight him, I might pull something over that would actually bring, that focus of importance and twinkle onto my student. And so, depending on really what my goal was for this, um, I might bring something over on top of him actually. And so everybody's preferences are different. In this case, I don't know if I actually do really like the smoke all that much, but just something to kind of think about, ways that you can build those up. And then you maybe put the text up there, whatever it is that you are wanting to do, and bring that celebration into it for your community. And so that is one kind of quick and easy way that you might be able to do that. And so I would suggest that if you have not made things like this, that you consider trying it out, because it really is fun for the students to see themselves and to be able to celebrate with one another, all of those accomplishments. And so that's been something that has been really fun to do over the last little while, with these kinds of photos and graphics. Something else that I've done recently is making these slides for my volleyball team. And they have a pink out game every year. That is a really big deal. Each of the sports is able to have a pink out game in Missouri, but the volleyball game for us has been one that's a really big deal. It's very well attended and has been an important part of their season each of the years that I've been in my building over the last 10 years. And so I asked our coach if this was something that she thought the girls would enjoy doing. And they were very excited to have me come in and take a picture of them. I took some pictures during their practice where they wore pink, and I created these slides again just to advertise that game and to encourage students to come out and attend. One of the things that they did while I was there, one of the girls said it would be really cool if our volleyballs were pink. And so when I was making these graphics in Canva, I actually, as I made them, I went ahead and I did a filter on them that would make it appear pink. And so then that's why the volleyballs in each of these is a slightly different color of pink. I had applied a different filter. And so then when I did the background remover in each of those, I went in, and in one of the copies that I made, I kept only the volleyball and erased everything else that was in that photo, so that when I finalized my design, that's not perfectly aligned, but you get the idea, of that was how I created all of the different versions of pink volleyballs in these. And so just kind of a quick little tutorial there in a way that you can create part of a graphic like that. Otherwise, I made the very first one. I built them, each of these, really almost all from scratch, adding the words, I kind of copied everything forward in terms of the text so that I didn't have to recreate that each time. And then made everything large and crazy and big and just kind of over the top, because this was one of those things where it felt like it deserved to be over the top. And my students get really so very excited again just to see themselves that I don't even have to do a whole lot to get them excited about whatever it is that I create. So just know that no matter what you do, if you're making something that is for school spirit purposes, your students are going to be so excited to see themselves and so appreciative of the fact that you are thinking about them, that you're going to generate a lot of excitement just by thinking about them. And so take the time to spend a little bit of time talking to the sponsors of activities, talking to the students. And absolutely, if you are somebody who has a class of students who can create these, task your students with creating things like this as well. In my instance, as the librarian, I don't have a group of students that I am putting in charge of these things. And so typically I am making them myself. And that's very different from what some people are doing. You may have a whole class worth of kids who are doing digital media for the school. You may have students who want to create the things themselves to encourage school spirit. This is just something that I have been doing that I think is really fun and enjoyable to recognize the people in my space. And then kind of a final thing just about staff around. I've been kind of saying this all along, but I just wanted to really quickly highlight that I do all kinds of things to recognize just people and who they are outside of just being teachers. And so I create slides for those TVs. And we do things like Guess Who, where I have teachers send me photos of themselves when they were in middle school or when they were babies. And we do a guessing game where the students do guess who they are. And so the teachers always know up front, if they're sending me those photos, that that's what I will be doing. And we've also done it with Guess Who the Pet Belongs To. We have done, highlighting teacher talents, where they're looking forward to going over the summer, favorite foods for various holidays, just anything that will recognize that those teachers are people outside of school, because sometimes we kind of lose ourselves in our jobs sometimes, and it's a way for students to see who we are and to make those connections as well as reminding ourselves. So I really do hope that you found something useful in here and something to inspire you to highlight that school spirit and things that are important in your school community. And please feel free to take a look at some of the resources in my link tree. I will have some of the templates for some of these available so that you can adapt or modify things that I've already done to work for your school and your building, as well as other things that I've made that are linked there as well that you are welcome to use to your benefit. I hope that everyone is having a fantastic first semester. I think that most of us are moving into quarter 2 now, and that the rest of the year goes smoothly for everyone and is filled with nothing but good things. Thank you so much for taking the time to view this. I know it was a little longer than expected, but I have a hard time being brief and fitting things in to the time that I'm supposed to sometimes. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, fantastic day.